Weekend Warrior Creative Lab, what is it?
It's a good question. Music, photography.
I've been thinking about that.
Is it all of the above? I mean, do we talk about backgrounds?
Yeah. Let's start there.
Yeah.
I think that's the best bet.
So
Your name is,
I'm Matt Shimalecki.
and you can tell by the name you're not from the South.
That is correct. From Manchester, Connecticut. I moved to South Carolina in 1993 to finish college. And that's when I met Kevin Smith.
And I was born in South Carolina, but my mom was born in Chicago and was raised in Florida. So it's not really your typical Southern
No.
upbringing. We're both living in South Carolina at this point. We are both professionals. We have 9 to 5, Monday through Friday jobs that we enjoy, that are a career.
I wouldn't say enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
You do.
But we're both musicians. I was thinking about it on the way over here, Matt. Like, part of us, I think both of us would say we both wanted to be professional musicians.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then also both of us were like, okay, if we do that, then we cut out this whole
Right.
big chunk of life.
Right, and there's too many. To me, it turned out there were too many sacrifices, and you know,
Right.
being a selfish and materialistic person, I mean, like many of us are, just a consumerist or whatever. I realized that wasn't the path that I needed to take.
Right.
I mean, I did when I went back to, got out of high school, went to working in restaurants because I wanted to be a professional musician, and that's what you do.
Yeah, right.
You wind up working in restaurants for a 3 years, and then said, I have to, get back to some sort of a degree is what I had in mind, and I didn't know what that was going to be. I did like technology, so that's what I got into. I did start off thinking. I went to community college, and they had a cooperative program with the Hartford Conservatory of Music, so I started that for a semester or two, and I was taking lessons and some music courses, and then through a series of events I was playing gigs and stuff, and I just decided that that also wasn't the the right path for me.
Talk about that, because there was something that you told me a long time ago about meeting one of your idols.
So right, yeah, that's actually so there was a local player on the music scene, and just fantastic bass player. Played with all kinds of different people, famous people, just the pinnacle in my mind at the time too of somebody that I knew, the best player, and he was a generation older than I was, probably in his 40s or maybe early 50s at the time, and I was living in this crappy apartment. And one time I was at one of his gigs, and he said, "Hey, yeah, I saw you at the apartment." I said, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "Yeah, I saw you at the apartment complex." And I was like, "Where?" He's like, "At such and such road." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "That's where I live too." And I said, "This guy's the best bass player that I know, one of the best musicians I know. He's in his 40s or 50s, and he's living in the same crappy apartment complex I am." I said, and that really kind of turned the tables for me, and I said, okay, switched my major to computer science, and that's what I ended up doing. So yeah, now I'm in technology management, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years. So.
And to me, a lot of people think there's like the rock star and then the lay person, but there's so much in between.
Totally. Well, and both of us have done our normal job. Your job, as you'll find out, overlapped more with music, but that I've always played. The only times I've not gigged until recently were when my kids were born. For a year or so, my wife said no gigging, so I didn't. But music was what got me through school, got me probably 75% of my income for even when I was first married. After I got out of college, I still didn't have a job that was lucrative enough. So I played more gigs in the first few years I was married than ever. I was in 2 and 3 bands, plus working in restaurants, plus plus pulling network cable and working small networking jobs. But yeah, music was just such a huge part of me growing up, making a living. And, and then of course later it got to where I was always gigging, and it wasn't to make a living anymore. It was just because I loved it and wanted to do it.
And that's, to me, is important to mention at this point, is that both of us have a love for music that has nothing to do with rock stardom or money. You know, it's just that, like, we want to do this thing. And so we're trying to find outlets to do that. And we've done that in a variety of ways. I dropped out of high school to pursue music, kind of a messed up family situation. But I was like, all right, that's all I have. That's the only thing I can do well is music. So I'm going to go after it. And scraped around and moved a bunch, ended up in Atlanta trying to pursue that rock star thing, and just realized, like, I want to make good art. That's what I kept coming to my head. And, like, that's not necessarily what makes a living, And so it's like, all right, well, what do you do with that then? And so I kind of pulled back and decided to, like, focus on recording and creating art that way. And then there came an income stream with that, because it was like, all right, well, if I can actually create a recording studio, and then, that could be a way I could do that part of my art, but also make a living. And so did that for almost, 17, 18 years.
Where I recorded my very first CD.
That's right.
Of course, we did cassettes and stuff before that, but the first CD I ever had in my hand.
My first CD burner.
Hard disk recorder.
Well, yeah, that's right.
And ADAT. That he had serious stuff back then.
We need to visit some of the jazz stuff for real, like examine it, I think. Mm-hmm. And then that was that thing where, same deal, where it became sort of like, to me at least, sort of like a gigging musician, where I'm working all the time and not really, because it's a small town, and I suppose in a big city, maybe, I don't know. Well, you can make a big living.
Know what? The funniest part too, what I discovered later, is I always had this kind of, what I now know, I guess, was this fanciful idea of what you're like. I was like, man, he's just living the ultimate.
You had it wrong, dude.
But I always said, and I would tell my wife, I'd say, man, why didn't I pursue that? And I guess it's the grass is always greener, because you never, I guess I won't say never, but rarely are people completely satisfied with what they do. But mine is just, what I do is so completely outside of the creative realm, really. I mean.
And I've been very fortunate to work in a creative thing.
Always.
It's not the most lucrative, but it's been creative at least, so that's been nice.
And you do love what you do. I mean, I know you do.
Yeah.
And I enjoy what I do, but I could give it up tomorrow and just do music and do video and photography and stuff like that. That's what I really want to do, and always have. And then my job has just always been a way for me to do that. And of course, I'm sort of I guess you call a heat seeker or something like that, somebody that likes gear and technology, and I like to purchase, stuff.
Heat seeker, I like that.
Yeah, and whether it's basses, guitars, amps, cameras, whatever, but I like to explore things and find, in a lot of ways, I try not to be that guy that thinks that the gear is going to make you better, and I don't think that's how I am, but
I don't think you believe that. I just think you like it.
Right, and I learned from, and many stories of, because we know a lot of the same people, about people having crappy gear and it just completely going out on them during gigs, and that was something I never wanted. I always wanted high quality stuff, and I didn't ever. I mean, when you're young, we never had that stuff. We had junk, and so the minute I'd invest a little bit of money into something, try to turn it around for something a little better and more reliable, and blah, blah. And then I'd always be the guy that I wanted backups of everything, and I always wanted extra cords and extra lights and extra PA equipment, whatever. But then that kind of bit me, because then I wound up that was the guy that had the equipment, and then people take advantage of that too. So whatever. I mean, it's.
But that's the journey, right? Is that we're digging around on all this stuff, and there's no glory. There's no glory road.
Nope.
Maybe there was. I don't know. I think there's always this like nostalgic view of that.
Yeah.
And maybe there was for some people for some time, but I think the majority of us who love music know we're probably not going to make a living with it.
Right.
And that's what this community is about, I think. But where you and I have really connected, we're like, hey man, if we don't pursue this thing, it's going to die. So let's pursue it. But all we really have at this point is the weekends, you know. Let's
Absolutely
create this thing where we can like really get creative on the weekends. And I know there's a bunch of people watching
Just
who
like,
are
yeah.
exactly that. And so like, what are we excited about, you know?
Right.
And at the end of the day, and here's the reality: we are neighbors,
Next
like
door neighbors.
literal next door neighbors. We've been friends for a long time. We're both girl dads, which I think is not by coincidence, you know,
No.
that we kind of understand what that's like. We've both been married for a long time, and we both are determined to not become crusty old guys who just are like, you know, not, everything sucks.
Yeah.
More like, hey, let's keep messing with this thing. Let's do some stuff that may suck, but maybe it'd be great.
Right.
Who knows? You know, not scared of that anymore, you know?
And yeah, to me, that's going to be what my retirement is going to be is pursuing things like this and creative pursuits. You know, people always say, "Oh, I can't retire. I'll be bored," or you know that. There's
That blows
many
my
things.
mind. There's so many books I want to read alone.
Right. There's,
you know,
there's
like,
too many notes on those instruments that
Right.
I don't know well enough, and you know how to make them connect together and all. You know, there's not enough time to do what I want to do now with a Monday through Friday. So
we're gonna dig in, and the thing about this idea with the YouTube channel to me is like that's a way to keep our feet to the fire. Like, all right, we got to produce something.
Right.
We can't just like it and enjoy it and dink around on the guitar a little bit or do whatever. Like, we actually need to produce something, and we can hold each other accountable. Like, all right, are we actually doing something here, or are we just talking about it? And so we've pushed forward and decided to like actually make this thing that's something tangible. So it'll be interesting to see what it becomes, but we don't really know. There's no business plan. There's no 5-year plan. This is like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Let's mess around.
And I've been watching, and I know you have too. You watch other YouTube videos about what you need to do to start your YouTube channel, and some of it's great advice, but I don't know how much of that we're going to follow. But
well, at first I was like, okay, we need to do
we
these
have
things.
to do this. We have to.
And it's like, do we though? I mean, maybe we just need to do what we do,
Right.
And see what
and
happens.
I feel like I think what we've discussed is some of what we want to do. I think or most of it should have some kind of backstory to it. It can't be just.
Right.
I mean, there's enough technical review sites out there. There's enough people that are reviewing movies or reviewing music or performing music or whatever. I think one thing that I thought was really great that you did at your studio at I guess it was 15th anniversary, when you opened the studio up to people and said, we're going to show you how a recording session happens. And I was part of that. I was bass player, and we recorded a song all the way through with overdubs. We made mistakes purposefully and not.
And people were in the studio
and people
watching
were
us
in the
do
studio
it.
watching the whole process and watching it unfold and actually seeing, because we think as musicians everyone understands that, but they don't. I mean, a lot of people had a lot of questions, but I mean that's the type of thing I want to do is the exploratory process, the exploratory part of the creative process. How does this happen? How does this work? And I think some of the ideas that we have around a particular individual we want to do a documentary on, there's a lot of backstory to that. There's a lot of the creative process and what drives people to be creative and what drives people to like certain kinds of music. And I mean,
and to be really real, like I think there's going to be an emotional component to this, at least for me, because like that thing you were just talking about with the studio weeks ago. I don't know how long it was ago. Not recently. Mm-hmm. We were hanging out, our wives and us, by your pool right here in the back, and we were talking about that recording, and then you had it. I haven't heard that recording probably since we did it, because not long after that went down, I had remodeled my studio. I was trying to do a thing. It just became very obvious that this was going to kill me if I kept doing it. So I basically just packed it up, and so it felt to me like a failure, honestly. Like just the whole big
totally
experiment was this thing, and it just didn't really work, so I had to pack it up and go. But it wasn't. And
No,
to hear that
totally
recording, it was like, you know what, that actually is pretty good, you know. And
It was
like,
really good, yeah.
And there was a thing, like some people learned some stuff at that point. You and I got to connect. You and I got to create a thing that surpassed the moment in time that was there, and so we could go back and look at it, and now we have a document. And again, if there wasn't a recording studio, we couldn't have documented it that way.
That's right.
So it's there's going to be some stuff where it's like, if at least for me, like I said, I'm going out on a limb on some stuff and dealing with some like insecurities and stuff that like I want to be great, but I know there's only so much. So
And I think as musicians, insecurity is part of the game for almost all of us.
You can pretend like it's not,
right? Which a lot of them do,
but
and a lot of us do, I should
right,
say. But
right.
yeah,
that's not me.